So Ryan Coogler wants to take a swing at a horror movie. I just got out of watching Sinners. There's been a lot of hype, a lot of anticipation for this movie, and it's finally out for the public. But there's going to be some things I got to kind of yap about real quick before I get into my thoughts of this movie, just to kind of set you up to how I was feeling going into this movie. So, even getting the news of this movie was interesting. Like, he's gonna make a vampire movie. It's set in like around Jim Crow era, and I was just really, honestly, not excited about that. One, the setting, didn't really care that much for it. Even though I like things like Lovecraft Country, I feel like they executed that well. I was just like, and then on top of that, you're going to do a vampire story, and I'm not too keen with just vampire stories in general. It's not like the worst genre. It definitely has its huge fan base. There's so many different types of iterations of vampires. It's really dope. But for me, it's just kind of a little oversaturated. Now, what would be cool is if Coogler decided to make a slasher. I think that'd have been super dope. Maybe one day. And hopefully he just doesn't do Sinners, because this is obviously going to be a new franchise, interestingly enough. And most people that don't know, there are two post-credit scenes, one after the mid-credits and one after the end credits. So you definitely want to stick around to check that out if you care to. This is Michael B. Jordan playing two characters. He plays these twin brothers, Smoke and Stack. Smoke is the one that wears the blue. Stack is the one that wears the red. And I like how they kind of depict that within these posters that they put out. Kind of that duality. You could break that down a lot of kind of ways, and what the red and blue mean, the red and blue pill, or certain things like that. They are distinctly different, because that's one thing I was kind of worried about with Michael B. Jordan. Because it's not to say he's not a bad actor or anything, but it's just, this is definitely something he hasn't done before that is definitely challenging. I do think Ryan did a good job in the special effects, where you have two characters at the same time. And sometimes you can notice the CGI, but this looked really clean. There's sometimes that it look like, is that a green screen background? I don't know. Certain things kind of took me out of the movie just for a brief second, because I just noticed just something weird about it. But there are some really dope shots, and I will say, like, you're going to hear a lot of people say that this movie is his most ambitious, and I will have to agree with that. And like I said, you got to kind of go into this movie with your own expectations, because one thing that kind of surprised me is this is pretty much like a musical. Like, there's a lot of musical numbers, but like how the music is important to just the overall story, where you don't just have these two twin characters, you also have their cousin Sam, which he's a musician. He plays the guitar, and they have all this religious kind of themes as well, which is honestly ironic since this is Easter weekend. Anyways, I definitely think that some people might not expect this movie to be such a slow burn, because it definitely eases you into the vampire stuff, where we just get the backstory on pretty much Smoke and Stack, and them coming back into town. They want to set up this sawmill place where they're going to have pretty much just like a function, just like a party, or just somewhere where everybody around the neighborhoods could kick it. Stack goes in one end of the town, and Smoke goes into the other one, and we get to kind of see how they differ, how they have completely two different outlooks on what they want to accomplish. Stacks is a little bit more with slick talking, more like more like a player where Smoke is more straightforward. He'll shoot you and ask questions last. He's that type of person, much more direct. So pretty much the movie is just kind of building up Stack's character, Smoke's character, and also Sammy's character, because he plays a big part on why these vampires pop up. And there's a lot of interesting things, like I said, with the musical angle. I don't know how some people are going to feel about that, because people don't necessarily like musicals, but how it plays into the overall story is really interesting. Um, Going back to, Smoke and Stack's relationship, we see Smoke and who his love interest is with Annie, and how she's really tapped in with the spirits. And I like how they kind of deal with the supernatural, where it kind of makes it believable, and the vampires are like old school stake through the heart vampires. I like that it's more of like a hive mind, but also the kills are pretty cool, even though I'm not the biggest fan of like CG blood, even though it's a mixture of digital and practical. The main villain was pretty cool, even though we'll see where they go with that. I don't know if there's multiple vampires out there. This is just kind of like the kicking off point. Not gonna go too much more into that for people that are just watching this weekend, trying to stay as spoiler free. I like these characters for the most part. I think Michael B. Jordan did a good job. You have a lot of familiar names. Haley Steinfeld did a really good job. The costume design. The one scene that has to do with music, I'm curious to see how people are going to react to that when more people get to see it. If it's going to kind of take them out of the movie, or they're going to kind of understand that Ryan Coogler definitely embraces multiple genres in this movie, not just like the time period that's in. I know a lot of people could feel like that's immersion breaking, or you know what I'm saying. But overall, man, I think this was solid. I do feel like this movie was a tad bit overhyped, in my opinion. Maybe I'll feel different after a rewatch, or that's just my kind of thing about vampire stuff that just doesn't really click with me all the time, like it does with other people, especially people that are huge fans of this genre. Um, but yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts. I want to know your thoughts if you get around to checking this movie out. I think this is a much better movie than what he did with Wakanda Forever. I definitely think it's shows you that when Ryan's in his bag, he could definitely do some really creative things, and I want to see him do more horror. You know what I'm saying? I want to see him do an A24 slasher horror movie in the near future. We'll see where this all goes. Let me know how you guys feel about it. Till next time, I'm out. Peace.